There was a time when the U.S. was a reluctant world power. Foreign policy was run by the State Department and the U.S. Treasury, and largely focused on advancing American commercial interests overseas.
We had American statecraft that largely relied on diplomacy and economic policy. We had secretaries of state that everybody knew their names. We had secretaries of war that nobody had ever heard of. The Second World War changed all that. And it really brought to the fore a unified Department of Defense.
Policy makers talked in terms of U.S. foreign policy and defense policy. Since World War II, or down to the present moment, policymakers tend to talk in terms of national security policy. And national security policy tends to privilege or to place particular emphasis on the role of the military in advancing U.S. interests.
After World War II, George Kennan, a top American diplomat in Moscow, sounded the alarm over the existential threat he saw in the Soviet Union. Paul Nitze saw the Soviets quite differently. He called for military expansion to counter Soviet armament.
George Kennan concluded that the United States, after our success in the Second World War, could not just draw back, that we had to have these permanent alliances like NATO.
This treaty is a simple document. The nations which sign it agree to abide by the peaceful principles of the United Nations.
And like our Pacific alliance with Australia and Japan and South Korea, to safeguard the United States because we had forces overseas and had commitments and allies overseas who were willing to defend us. And it worked marvelously.
Kennan and Nitze disagreed. Kennan said, play it for the long run, use all the instruments in your foreign policy quiver, all the arrows in that quiver. Nitze tended to emphasize the military arrows in the quiver. He was pressing for a more active buildup in terms of the military.
That was the point in time in which the military institutions became more powerful in American government than the diplomacy and foreign assistance institutions.